So they go from that montage into like the electric web montage. I'm like, what's happening?
Pacing is horrible. Like you watch the movie and you just want it to end.
Beings? Hello, we are Movie Beings. I'm Tim.
I'm Darren.
And today we're going to be talking about Marvel's our least favorite 5 Marvel movies.
The worst Marvel movies.
There's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. Let's go.
And a lot of movies. So
there are a lot of movies.
We've got a lot to get through. Yeah. So, Darren, what did you think of this adventure? Because so far we've just been like reviewing, I would say, good movies.
Yes,
I don't think so far we've watched a bad movie.
Yeah.
But how did it feel to kind of either rewatch a bad movie or even try to figure out?
It was painful. It was super painful. Well, I'm not a big fan of the Marvel movies, but at least we have to give them the merits, right? So since 2008 up until this point of this list,
yeah, it's still going.
they're still going, but they have already generated almost $30 billion of box office.
Crazy.
So you have to give them some kind of merit, and there are some decent movies in there.
Yeah. They're not all. We're not saying they're all bad. We're just there's a crop to pick from.
But surprisingly, all of the movies on my list are all from Phase 4.
Well, there you go. Maybe that's saying something. Well, I was going to say, your pick from Disney. Most of mine are from Sony.
Oh, okay. That's good. So we can actually discuss which one will actually sit in the top, the bottom 5. I would say the bottom 5. Do you want to start with yours first?
Well, first I was going to say, should we give some shout outs to maybe some movies we didn't watch or maybe didn't get to?
Yes. Which one do you have?
So I've got a few. I've got Madam Web, which came out maybe a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to go watch.
Oh, yeah. I saw all the reviews on this movie and all the, I guess, the YouTube videos critiquing this movie. So that's why I haven't watched it yet.
That's fair. I'd probably say the same thing. I'm like, I'm not going to bother. I already watched the trailers and I'm like, this looks ridiculous. And then everyone said it was ridiculous and I'm like, not worth my time.
Yes.
So I will be talking about one of the X-Men movies, but some of those X-Men movies, I will say I do enjoy X-Men, but I'd say there's maybe more bad movies of X-Men movies than there are good ones.
Okay.
Those Ghost Rider movies. I forget they're Marvel, and I was looking it up, and I'm like, oh my God. I do like Nicolas Cage. He always brings something, but they were atrocious. I will say, I can't remember if the second one was, but the first one was filmed in Australia, which is always interesting, here in Victoria.
Awesome.
Eternals I never watched. Don't
worry, you don't want to watch that.
I never watched that one.
I watched it. It was long. It was painful. It made me angry. It made me want to break my screen in half.
Sounds like a wonderful movie.
Yes.
There was the latest Ant-Man movie, the Quantumania. I think that's how it... I never watched that. I also heard it was bad.
Don't watch it.
I have watched and then I also put Hulk as well, which I have also watched, but not in a long time, and I didn't really want to sit through it again.
This is the original one with Eric Bana.
Yes, with Eric Bana. There's the second one. I can't remember what's his name. What's the actor's name?
Yeah. God, it just escapes my mind at the moment. The guy in Fight Club.
Yeah. Mr. Fight Club.
Mr. Fight Club. Just call him Mr. Fight Club.
Not Brad Pitt. The other one.
No, not Brad Pitt. Just call him Mr. Fight Club for now. Ed Norton.
Ed Norton. There we go.
Yeah. Yes.
What about you? Are there any other ones that I probably missed? I'm sure there's more. They were just ones that came down.
Yes, I limited my list from 2008. So there are some older or some other superhero movies that I didn't watch, like the Daredevil with Ben Affleck. I didn't watch that. Well, I mean, I watched it, but I didn't.
I definitely put that on the honorable mentions. That's definitely on there.
There are some older Spider-Man movies as well with Maguire. Yeah.
I didn't mind the first two. The third one's a bit much. I was going to say I am talking about one of those Spider-Man movies, not those ones, but another one.
Yeah. So I didn't include those movies in my list. I just focused on the MCEU. So from 2008, from Iron Man, and then all the way until the day that we started this list. Yes, and I didn't watch Madam Web, thank God.
Thank God, yeah. Well, that's another Sony one as well, so there you go.
Do you want to start with, okay, so how are we going to do this? I would say before we start the list, I want to share with you like a bit of my process. So because there are so many bad movies, I didn't really know where to start. So I just went on like this website where they compile all of the budgets and the box office ranking, and then I just picked like the 5 movies that performed the worst, and then I watched them all. And then I would say that the box office really reflects the quality of the movie. I'm not saying that they are 100% correct, but if you have to base your decision on the opinions of hundreds of thousands of people, then it might be correct.
Probably share a similar opinion.
Yes.
Which is weird, because some movies that maybe aren't huge and not involved with like a huge production, that maybe have like a low like box office, doesn't mean they're necessarily bad.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the, millions of dollars of marketing behind them, and probably, maybe don't appeal to a large crowd, where all the Marvel movies are trying to appeal. They all want to make billions of dollars off every movie. Yeah. So when it does have a low box office, you're like, oh, people really didn't like this.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I include into my list as well. So there isn't actually a formula, the budget of the movie, if you times it by 2, because you need to account for marketing.
Yeah, which is usually a lot of it.
Usually a lot of money. So if the box office doesn't make up twice the amount of the budget, which is included the marketing, is considered a fail.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize this, but when you take in the box office revenue, you have to pay 50% to the cinemas.
Oh, well, there you go.
And that is only in the US. But if you show the movies overseas, then the percentage changes. In China, they keep 70% of the revenue.
Gosh. I'm surprised, because I feel like there's been a few films that do try to cater to China because it's a large audience. But I'm surprised if they don't,
But even then, even when they cater to the large audience, and even when they keep only 30% of the revenue, if the revenue is good, and they will still make money.
Say it's like $500 million, it's still like a lot of money.
Correct. Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Let's jump into the list. Why don't we start with, I guess,
my least favorite of the top?
Let's keep let's keep the worst movie at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's start with like number 5.
So my number 5 was, it was hard. I had both Thor movies here. Dark World and Love and Thunder.
Okay.
And I think I went with Love and Thunder in the end, after rewatching Dark World again, which I found really, really boring and bad as well.
Yeah.
But with Love and Thunder, it was just like, I feel like it had so much potential coming off Ragnarok, because I really enjoyed Ragnarok, which I found, I'm not a huge fan of Marvel either, but I feel like Ragnarok was kind of funny, and it had its like really strong points with like characters and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun, bit goofy, a lot of serious moments that like kind of landed with me. And then I was like, Love and Thunder had a bit of hope. It had Christian Bale coming on, who's an amazing actor who I love. And I'm like, they brought back, why have I forgotten her name?
Natalie Portman.
To reprise her role. And she's an amazing actress as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's stuff to work with here. But I'm like, none of it landed. Like, it starts off really good, that like Christian Bale, when he's like, I don't know if have you watched the movie?
Yeah. When
he's talking to the god at the start,
and
he's having this serious moment about his like daughter dying, and the god's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh god, this is going to be really serious. But it plays off as a joke.
Yeah.
And then you watch the rest of the movie and like, that doesn't really land anymore, because you joke about a lot of other serious stuff.
Yeah.
Like Natalie Portman in this has cancer, and they joke about it all the damn time. Like, damn, bro, can't you have one moment to be like, can we not deal with this like a bit maturely? And I'm like, there's obviously a lot. It really goes into the comedy angle.
Yeah.
Because Taika Waititi directed this.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was done. It really feels like I'm just going to do whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And not really, because I feel like Ragnarok was a bit more tame. Like, there were those silly moments in it, but it didn't feel as bad as Love and Thunder.
Yeah. I agree with you. I actually have Thor Love and Thunder at number 5 as well.
Well, there you go. Good start, I guess.
That was easy. But one of the reasons why I put Thor Love and Thunder there is because one of the reasons is very similar to yours. Like, the movie tried to set up to be a very serious story, but then they kept downplaying it,
undermining it with humor.
Yeah, but then you don't need to have like humor throughout the movie, because the humor would work better if it gets balanced out with serious moments. Because
I think some of those early, I don't think many, like I even watched the original Thor movie again. There's like a little bit of humor, but there's not much there. It's very like, not dry, but like very tame. And I feel like when Ragnarok, and even some of the stuff they did with Thor, like being a bit more humorous, really landed and made him a bit more successful of a character. And then it just kind of like Ragnarok really peaked for Thor. And then like going into Love and Thunder, it really like let him down again. It's like, they found kind of like a niche for him, and then they went too far into it.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, in Ragnarok, it shows a big problem with the superhero movies. Like, if you want your hero to be the hero, then you need to have a really good villain. And you can't really have good villain if you keep downplaying all the time. You know,
and
you have Christian Bale.
Yeah, someone like Christian Bale. Like, he's like, he does amazing in every role he does. And you kind of like, I don't know how much he's in this movie, but he's not a lot. And they really don't utilize him as much as being this villain. Because I feel like the kind of dynamic between Thor and, you know, kind of like figuring out what he's doing and then like falling in love, finding his old, you know, girlfriend again and like dealing with that. And it's all just like, oh.
And I think it comes down to the issue with the script as well. You know, like in order to create a good story, I would say it needs to create a good conflict. So from Gore's side of view, you know, we don't really understand why he wants to kill all God.
Well, that's what I was saying before. I think that first clip, the first start of the movie does really capture that well.
Yeah.
Where his child has died.
Yeah.
And there's this God they pray to, and it's like, you're meant to help us through struggles and stuff. And he's like, we don't really care about you normal people, you know. And then it's just like, it clicks in him. He's like, why do we give all this stuff to the gods? And it's just like, well, stuff you guys, I'm going to try to kill you all.
Yeah.
But like, there could have been, I won't doubt there could have been more there, but I do think it was like a good launching point.
Yeah.
But like we've been saying, it is undermined through the whole movie, I feel. Like, I feel like it's not the main focus. He's kind of like an external threat that isn't focused on.
Yeah. And also Thor as well, like for him, like in this movie, he was lost. Like he was looking for his purpose.
Again.
Because
I feel like he's been lost a lot in like the Marvel franchise.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you don't give the character a good script or a good motivation to go through.
Because I don't think Hemsworth is a bad actor. Like, I don't think he's like a top tier, but I do think he does like a good job of Thor.
Yeah. But in this movie, though, like it's weird because even though he trained his body to look like a superhero, but I couldn't really understand the motivation of Thor in this movie. Like, what is he really trying to do? Okay, he's trying to find his purpose, and he's doing that by doing what? Nothing. Because if you are a hero, like you need to have at least a motivation or a purpose to go. But for him, like he just literally stumbles through events. I think like Natalie Portman has a much better purpose than he does.
And even that, like the conflict with that as well, where they're trying to like figure out what happened with their relationship and stuff, and it kind of goes into like a romantic comedy kind of thing. Yeah. But it's even more goofier than that. I feel like it's more goofier than an Adam Sandler movie, and I'm like, oh, what is this?
And some of the humor in this movie really didn't land well. Like
because then it overdoes it as well. Like when you've got it all the time down your throat, you're like, well, do I keep laughing or do I give up?
Well, I mean, I think at some point throughout this movie, I actually wished that that like please give me like a serious moment. And you know, and of course there are some bad logics in this movie as well. Like why does Gore kidnap a bunch of kids when he loves kids, right? One of the main motivation for him to kill all gods is because
he's trying to for vengeance of
the kid, right? But then he kidnapped all the kids. Why?
Motivation for the heroes to go save someone, right?
But that motivation makes no sense from the point of view of the villain.
Yeah,
really.
It's like a weak structure or a weak plot point.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I was struggling through the bunch of the bad movies from Marvel just to make this list. So, okay, that's number 5. We got Thor, Love and Thunder. What about your?
I think you can go with 4. I started with 5. It just happened to be that we both had it on 5, so that's kind of good. I don't know how the rest of the lists will go, but we'll see.
For my number 4, I put Black Widow with Scarlett Johansson.
I have never watched it.
Oh, lucky you. So there are a few reasons why I picked this movie for number 4. One, I think Scarlett Johansson is a good actress.
She is. She's done amazing work.
But then in this movie, after the movie was out,
because this is like a prequel, right? This is like this is before a lot of other stuff in the Marvel universe, right?
Yes. And the issue, well, there are a few issues with this movie. One, Scarlett Johansson had a legal act against Disney with this movie.
Oh, really?
So after this movie was out, this is during COVID. So this is like 21.
Yeah.
And Marvel Disney were planning to release this movie on the streaming platform and in theater. And I think in somewhere in the contract it says if the movie got released on time, then Scarlett Johansson would get like a bonus of $10 million or something, ridiculous. And Marvel or Disney purposely delay the release like twice so that they wouldn't have to pay her that amount of money.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So she took them to court and she won. So she got the money that she deserved.
Because they'll obviously deliberately being like, oh, it's I'm assuming it was ready and everything was ready. And they're just like, oh, we're just, we're not giving you your damn money.
So that is outside of the movie.
The damn rich getting richer, eh?
Yes. But inside the movie, where do I start? The issue here is always with the bad guy.
Yeah, I feel like that's a huge point in most of these bad movies. Yeah. Like the villain is just so weak.
And this is one of the movies that they really hold on down to the idea of a powerful female character. Like all the superheroes or heroes in this movie are all female. I'm not sure if they did this on purpose. But even with the character of the Russian,
the red, like he's like the
red shield, or like the Red Star, like the Captain Red Star. He's a stumbling idiot. Like he doesn't know where to go, he doesn't know what to do, and he's drunk all the time. And the bad guy is just like, I picked these girls just because I wanted to use them and turn them into weapons. Like he has no real motivation, and also there are so many illogical ideas in this movie as well. So I won't bore you with the details, but I'm just saying like it has really bad CGI. The hero has no real motivations. Like she got kicked out of the adventures and now she has to go back to her family, but it turns out the family is fake. And then so since I'm here, I'm going to go back and save the world from some men.
Fair enough.
and I was like, this is so boring because it's painful to watch. Like if you are watching a movie and then they keep telling you that all the guys are shit, then like I'm pretty sure not all the guys are like this, but that's the thing. What about your number 4?
So as I was talking about X-Men movies, I chose X-Men Origin. I was watching some of the bad ones, and I think this is because I was choosing between this and Dark Phoenix, which is the one that's just come out. Well, just come out. It's like 4 years.
Yeah.
What's like 19? I think it came out or something.
This is the one with Jessica Chastain as the white hair lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I chose Origins just because it like shows a lot of promise early, because it's meant to be the origin of Wolverine, and it really tries to emphasize like, how he kind of becomes who he is in later X-Men movies. But in the trailer or the starting like credit rolls, because they don't die, him and his brother, they're like the same kind of breed, and they can like live a long time and they can't die very easily, and they're like going through time, and they're like going through all these like events through time. And it's just showing you. And it's like, these are all cool moments that would have been cool to watch.
Yeah.
It's like fighting in World War, like fighting in Japan as summarized and stuff. And I'm like, this would have been cool to watch on screen. But it's just like a montage at the start. I'm like, well, that's a bit sad.
Yeah.
And then like gets into the movie and you're just like, oh, God. So he like joins, is it Broker, the like evil villain dude that like hates the mutants and uses
Stryker.
Okay, and he's like working with him early on with a bunch of other mutants, and they're like hunting down stuff for him. Because initially he's like, join us, we're gonna help people, as he's like, Sal, and obviously they're not.
Yeah.
And then he joins his banda group, and then they go in and like killing people, and they're like, we're coming to get this rock. And then Wolverine, he's like, why are we doing this bad stuff just to get a rock? We're like murdering people to get a rock. And it's like, okay. And then eventually like he orders his brother to like kill a bunch of innocent civilians. Yeah. And Logan is like, no, you can't do this. And he's like, and he's like, are you going to listen to me? He's like, well, I'm leaving. And he leaves. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then like shoots to the future, and he's like got away from them all. He's like got a girlfriend, they're living together happily. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just like, it's so, it's so hard to describe how annoying this movie is because there's so many different things that happen that just like they try to give like emotional weight and it just quite doesn't land because they either move on or move on to the next thing. And it's just like either not given enough time to flesh out or they've just moved on. Because like he has this girlfriend who dies, who's killed by his brother, and he gets mad. He's like, oh, I'm going to hunt him down. Stryker comes back and he's like, oh, I'll help you come join us again. And then I'll like help you find your brother. And he's like, oh. And then he's like, goes finds his brother in a bar and he's like, oh, we're going to fight. He's like, you killed my girlfriend. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And then he gets away and he's like on this whole hunting trip to find him. And then Stryker's like, oh, I've got this metal that I can put in you to like help you fight your brother. And then he goes through the whole, original experiment. Yeah. What's the metal called again? I can't remember
the Weapon X.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what it turns him into. But like the metal they put into him and bind to him.
Adamantium.
Yes.
I can't even pronounce the name of the
metal. That's what I
metal.
can't pronounce it. That's what I was trying to remember. But so Stryker's like, we're going to inject this stuff into you. We think you can survive it. And then you'll become like this ultimate warrior. I'm like, okay. And he does it. And then obviously he gets mad and then he escapes. Yeah. I feel like this is the whole thing with like, oh, he's Wolverine. He gets mad and gets angry and everything. I'm like, okay.
Has no logical explanation why he is mad.
Well, it's fair to be mad, but it's just like, I feel like it's like, oh, it's Wolverine. He's got to get mad about something. And it like affects his memory. He like runs off to this like farm and he finds his family and they're like, oh, this old couple. Yeah. And he's like naked running through and he's like, oh, we'll help you out. And this goes on for about 5 minutes. And then the Stryker's team finds him and then like the guy, they like kill him. And it's like, oh, this is sad. But I'm like, well, I've known them for like 5 seconds. They seem like nice people. Yeah. And it's just like, well, back off to running around again. And then it's just like, oh, it just keeps going on and on and on. Like, oh.
But if you have to pick one of the worst events or details in this movie, what would you say it is?
I don't know.
There's so many of them.
Like, because like all the motivations seem very weird. Because obviously at this point we don't know Wolverine before Wolverine or whatever, or we don't know Logan. But it's just like, I feel like it doesn't do a good job of even just like showing us. It kind of just like streamlines straight into kind of like who we kind of already know him as.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the worst point is like the whole movie and the motivation. Because it's just like, could we not show him a bit more before we go into like, oh, here's Wolverine fighting everybody.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what it turns into.
Yeah.
Because even when they go with the girlfriend and stuff, it's like, well, now we need to find a reason for him to fight stuff. Like, oh, his brother will come back and attack her and she's dead and now, And then even that later on, it finds out like the girlfriend was like in on it as well and like there to control him a bit.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I guess so. Like, it turns out she's a mutant. Yeah. But I think, again, I think if I have... I remember that movie now. So I think... If you have to pick, if I have to pick one of the details from that movie to make it bad, it comes down to like the villain. So I think Stryker is not a bad villain.
Yeah, but they don't even really focus on him enough.
Exactly.
It switches onto his brother.
Exactly.
A lot.
Exactly.
Who's kind of just like, I'm an angry dude that I just kill people because I enjoy it kind of thing. And it's like very shallow.
Exactly.
There's not really much motivation. It doesn't show much motivation for why. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm an angry dude and I kill people. Because even later, I think it shows in the movie that he was doing it to like protect the girl as well or something. And it's just like, you could have shown this a bit earlier. Like now, it's like, it still doesn't really validate all the other stuff he was doing. But
I think if you want to create a good villain, like you have to get the audience to relate to them, to empathize with their motivation. And, maybe the methods and the execution is extreme, but if they can relate to his motivation, that's what makes a good villain, because then his motivation and the hero's motivation will clash in the middle, and then you have like this strong conflicts between the two forces.
But that would involve some good writing.
Yeah.
Which this movie did not have.
To be fair, though, the guy who played Stryker in that movie is actually not bad.
He's not bad.
The first part when he got to the Rock, and then he ordered the team to murder a bunch of innocent people. I think that would make him a very strong villain.
But they go off him because that kind of happens. Exactly. And then he goes, and then Logan goes and lives his life.
Yeah,
which is fine. But it's just like, we don't focus on him, and then he kind of comes back in and does the thing to Logan to kind of make him Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then it's just like he's out of the picture again because Wolverine's hunting down his brother again. And then it's just like, oh, we're back onto Stryker. And then it's just like, it needed a really strong, I think a villain's a part of it, but not knowing what they wanted out of this film.
Yeah.
Like they didn't. I feel like they never really struck a point where it's like, oh, here's where we want from like point A to point B. I feel like they're like, how do we get him to where he's Wolverine?
Yeah.
Of where how he's like how we know him coming into like the original X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Because like they have Ryan Reynolds in this, and he plays Deadpool in this, and he's come out and said publicly that he hates this movie and hated like stuff about it, which I don't blame him, because he's like in it at the start, and then he's transformed into like the ultimate warrior. He has like the abilities of all of his friends, all the other mutants. He has all their powers, and he has to beat him. Even that's like a boring idea. He's like, oh, I'm fighting all the other mutants because it's all in one. And it's just like, all right. And then he teams up with his brother because they're like, oh, we're working together now. And then even after that, he's like, oh, I don't forgive you. And he's like, oh, I'm the only one that can kill you. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, here we go. And then again, like if you want to have a strong hero, then you need to have a much stronger villain, so that they have something to become better at, to grow. But if you think that the villain is like weaker than the hero, and they have to like combine all the other villains,
that's what I mean.
To beat the hero.
How do they compete with them? That's the thing. It's so hard. That's what's hard about superhero movies, because you've got someone that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure we're going to talk about this later in some, but it's just like, oh, we're just fighting against themselves, because that's like the easiest choice.
Yes.
But anyway, did you want to move on to number 3?
Yeah, I think we talked about Wolverine enough. What do you have for your number 3?
Well, mine. So this is still kind of Sony.
Yeah.
So I went for Venom. Let There Be Carnage.
Oh, so Venom number 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 1's not great. It has I think it's fine.
Yeah.
It is very much by the rope, or kind of by the numbers.
Yeah.
I guess anti-hero even.
Yeah.
Where he's not really the anti-hero too much.
Yeah.
But
all right. For me, my number 3 is The Eternals, 2021. Oh my God. Like I can't wait to stop talking about this movie.
Maybe you should go first.
Okay.
While I also mull over why.
So
I don't want to talk about my movie.
So the first issue with The Eternals is there are a lot of characters. There are 10 of them.
They could have had 11.
No, they don't want to have 10. And my first impression of this movie is like, oh, so these are the Power Rangers. Each of them has a different color.
Oh, that's good. You gotta, especially when you have a lot of characters, you got to be able to point them out somehow,
But unfortunately, they didn't have the giant robots, so that's why it was one of the turning points for me. No giant robots.
Where's the big robots that all fused together?
But they had the giant monsters, so I was expecting the giant robots to appear at some point, and one did at the end.
Oh, well, there you go. You got close.
But another issue with this movie is it lacks the consistent perspective, because there are so many characters. Who are we following? And the story keeps switching between different perspectives. Like it gets so confusing. And then there are and it has a very similar to the other Marvel movies, where when there is a very serious moment and then they just downplay it with some silly humor. And there are some scenes that it was really obvious that they were catering for a specific niche of audience. For example, one of the characters is Indian. And of course, when we got reintroduced to him, so he was one of the Eternals, one of the gods. And then they kind of got separated. And when we got introduced to him again, he was making a Bollywood movie. I was like,
bit on the nose, isn't it?
Yeah. He was like,
does he have to be making a Bollywood movie?
He was dancing. He was wearing colorful costumes.
Where there's like nothing wrong with it, and because they've got a lot of characters, they really have to like stereotype characters to kind of get. They kind of have to like pick. It's like, okay, this is what this character is. This is what this character is. Yeah. You don't have time to develop each character because they all have to be on film at some point.
Yeah, there was so many characters, and they even got Angelina Jolie to be in this movie.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Exactly. I forgot about her in this movie as well. Gosh. And the thing is, like, her acting is like very, very wooden, very one-dimensional.
She's only at the start, right? From vague, like I know, I haven't watched it, but I know vague.
Yeah. So she's one of the Eternals, and her ability is like she's the strong warrior. And that's her thing. Yeah. And that's about it. And her name, the character's name is Athena.
Oh, right.
And,
so is that what it kind of hints at? That's what she...
Yes. And apparently, I think they were trying to weave the story into like the history and the mythologies. Like Athena, the Greek goddess, is originating from Athena, the powerful warrior.
Which is always like an interesting topic of like trying to... Your like fiction kind of weaves into like fact. Well, fact, but you know, real world kind of situation. But
yeah. And the other issue, the other big issue is, again, what are the heroes' motivation? And it's weird because the movie kind of established that they have no motivation at the beginning. So turns out all the Eternals are all cyborgs.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah. And they were sent to Earth for a mission, and they accomplished that mission, but they are not allowed to go back, because they had to go on another mission that they didn't know about. Apparently, some of them knew about it, but they had to keep a secret. Well, there you go. So at the end, when the big bad happened, one of them betrayed the other ones. Like, the battle scenes drag on for so long with no weight, with no gravitas, with like... I watched the battle scenes like, oh yeah, this is cool graphics, but I would rather watching Power Rangers. You know, at least they got some stakes in the movie, right? Like these are the Eternals. They have no stakes in the movie whatsoever. They're here to do a mission. They accomplish their mission, and they stay for the next order. That's it. Whereas the Power Rangers, they have to save the world, and that mission was clear from the beginning. Yeah, that was my pick for number 3, the Eternals. It felt like an Eternal when I watched that movie.
Well,
for
there
sure.
you go. So with Let There Be Carnage, it is just like... Because it's so hard, like, when you're coming off Venom, which was already, like, fine.
Yeah.
So you think you'd, like, step it up, but it's like a step down from that. Which is always weird when it's like, oh, you already got, like, a subpar movie. And it's like, we got worse? Yeah. Which is... Because I remember because Andy Serkis is the director of this. Who I really love in, like, most of the stuff he does. He does a very good job. And I was like, why did he choose to direct this? Like...
Do you think that the studio has something to do with it? Because sometimes there are creative differences between the studio and the director.
There can, but I didn't look too much into like what happened in the background too much. I'm sure there's always something. Usually with bad movies, there's always something going on in the background that like messes with the movie somehow. But this seems like a weak, like even just like the story to begin with was kind of really not good. Because it's like literally Venom... Or I think his name's Andy, the guy he plays.
Yeah.
And he's like Woody Harrelson's like the villain, Carnage. Yeah. And the way he like gets his power, he's like a madman killer, and he like bites him and gets like Venom's power through his blood, and he's like turns into like this big Carnage because he's red because he bit the blood, and it's like, oh, I'm a big murderer now. Well, he was a big murderer, but now he's got the like Venom powers, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
like. And like the whole thing through the whole movie, well, it's not even through the whole movie, but the whole arching thing is meant to be that Woody Harrelson's character just wanted to be friends with Venom or with bloody...
God. Brock, like Andy Brock.
Yeah, Andy Brock. You just wanted to be friends with him. And I'm like, mate, this is... And then even because it's like at the end, and like Venom's winning and Brock's like has his like final speech with him and he's like, and then he's like, oh, I just wanted to be friends. And he's like, oh, well, okay. And then like Venom bites his head off. And I'm like...
It's so pointless, right?
Because it doesn't really... Like, it shows it a little bit that he's like, oh, I want someone to talk to, and to talk to. And I'm like, okay. But it's like, it doesn't really show it too much, where it's like, oh, he wanted a friend. Because as soon as he breaks out, he has his other girlfriend who's insane, her power is like, she's got like a high-pitched voice, which is like their weakness for like the symbiotes. And it's like, he gets his girlfriend out of like this place they're holding her because she's got powers, so they can't let her free. And then it's just like, so his motivation is like, oh, I'm going to go get my girl and we're going to get married. And then, because Carnage is like, oh, we've got to kill Venom because he's the only one that can beat me. And it's like, okay, we've got to deal with that.
Why though? Like, why would you want to hunt down someone that has nothing to do with you?
Well, the point is just like, oh, he's bad. Well, because Carnage wants to hunt him down because he's Venom. And he's like, oh, he's the only one that can beat me.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, obviously, I think he like at this point, Woody Harrelson's character knows who he is. So they go to like hunt him down. and then obviously it doesn't quite work out, and like Venom halfway through the movies like has a fight, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to be with you anymore. So Venom has his own little story about like, like I want to be free and do what I want, and it's like, okay, but it's just, it's so weak, the story, and it's just like the whole like having the whole point at the end is like, oh, I just wanted to be friends, when like through the whole movie you never really see Woody Harrelson's character just being like, oh, trying to make an effort, apart from like literally the start of the movie where he's like, oh, I only want to talk to Brock because he can write my story before I get executed for like being a mass murderer. And it's just like, and even that stuff, they kind of, I always find that bad movies will always tell you what's happening rather than like show you.
Exposition, that's what it's called.
Yeah, so he like exposition dumped why he's a bad person to him. And then it's just like, okay, like, should we feel bad for him? He kills a bunch of people, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It just, all of these points never really land. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, like why do we even care about the villain? Why do we even care about the hero? Right? So, like everything is so surface level. Like what you see is what you get. And I think that's one of the big issues with a lot of the movies, because when you do that, basically what you're telling the audience is you can't get any deeper meaning than this. What you see in right in front of you is exactly what we want you to see. And the thing is, then it makes the audience feel bored because they don't have any other expectation. You know, okay.
Or there's not much that to like go through. Because even at the end when he has this whole revelation, it's like, oh, I just wanted to be friends. It's like, there's no point. Yeah. How's that a possibility anyway? Yeah. When he's like a murderer. And he's a journalist, so obviously he has ways to like go in and maybe talk to him. But why would he need to be friends with a murderer?
Exactly.
Like if they tried to show sympathy for him and like maybe there was something going on that led him to these murders, maybe there's like a way to go about it. But it's just like seems so unreasonable to be like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I'm just like.
And I just think of something as well. Like when you mentioned that the first Venom movie was a bit of a success, and
like not that much, like not that much, just enough to be like we can make another one.
That's what I was trying to say, because now the standard is so low that when you get like a somewhat successful movie, that we have to make a franchise out of this.
Well, because Sony's really trying hard with these like them like Spider-Man product. They're really trying to push like Marvel has and make this like multi-billion-dollar industry with their movies. But I don't think any of the spin-offs they've done have landed. I'm trying to even think. None of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to talk anymore about
No. So let's. I think let's move on before the Venom gets inside our body.
Vile. Number 2. What have you got for 2, Darren?
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I think I watched it, but
you should.
Been a long time.
You should forget about it. Oh my God, where do we even begin with this movie?
I will say, I did enjoy the first Ant-Man. Yeah. I thought it was like a fun movie.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I went to watch this in the movie or not, but I do remember being like let down a bit. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. So to be fair, Ant-Man, the first part was actually a successful movie. You know, it's got some compelling villain. It's got some likable characters like Casey, like the little girl. You know, like it's got a few good things going on for it. And you know, even though it doesn't make like a big box office like the other Marvel movies, so it's got a bit of a smaller budget, $225 million.
So small.
But box office worldwide is 518.
So might have broke even, maybe.
No, like so they made 2.3 times. So they did make some money. So they got some profit out of it. So
but not as much as they probably.
Not as much as the other.
Is this phase 3?
Phase 2.
2.
No, we're right at the end of phase 2. Like
okay.
2005.
Because I think by then
15.
they're all. Most of their movies are probably close to getting billion, or like at this point, this would have been a failure. Like we know a bit further down the line, they've had worse movies than this performing wise.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sure they're like, oh, why didn't? I'm assuming this would have been like even lower on their expectations, maybe like 700,000 or something, or million. Sorry, 1,000. Yeah. Like, you know, like in that range.
Yeah.
Probably not like in the billions, but they probably thought this would have done a lot better than what it did.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you have to give the Marvel Studios some credits here. So during phase 2, up to 2015, and I would say even Phase 3. At this point, like Marvel was at the peak of the popularity.
This is peak. Yeah.
If you put a Marvel logo on anything, it would have done well. They would have done well.
Which is kind of damning of this movie, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Coming out in peak.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like during this time, like I think the popularity of Marvel helped this movie in that. And it turns out, this movie was quite decent. It's got like pretty compelling story, likable characters and good villain. Even though the villain might not be like the best or like the most well known, but his motivation was clear. And I would say that his name is also Darren as well.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so I might have a bit of a bias here. But
is that why I didn't get number one?
No, but this is like the original Ant-Man.
Oh, original Ant-Man.
Quantumania, like, no, I was going to put it at number one, but then I saw something else. That's even worse. So I was like, okay, you have to be at number one. But okay, so get back to Quantumania. So the movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp. And the Wasp was nowhere to be found in this movie. Like, she was just there. She had like pretty much like maybe 10 lines, and all the lines was just like one-liner. Then why even put her in a movie? Then like this movie like also went down the same track as Black Widow. Like all the heroes in this movie are all female. And Ant-Man, even though he's a titular character, he was just there. But I think the biggest issue that I have with this movie is the story really lacks coherent. It all started when his daughter invented a device that can get them into the quantum realm inside her bedroom with no device, no technology. So she just invited this device, and then all of them got sucked into the quantum realm, and then they all got separated, and then they kind of just stumble through the events with no real purpose, especially Paul Rudd. He was just there like, where should I go now? What should I do? Okay, I want to save my daughter.
Because I do think he does a good job of Ant-Man.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Because I feel like that's mainly the success of the first one is like behind him. I think he does a really good job.
Yeah.
He really sells like the goofy, funny guy, but also like that of being a dad and it's not like finding some purpose because he's like a thief, right?
Exactly.
And he has no purpose in that, or not no purpose, but he's kind of like, oh, I need to do a bit better for my daughter because he's divorced.
Exactly.
His daughter, I think she's like a teenager at this point or a young girl.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, I've got to try to do better.
Yeah.
That's kind of his like motivations in the first one. And now it's kind of like, I lost a bit of it now because it's like, not stable, but like where does his character go?
Exactly. It really felt like the audience would just rush into another superhero movie where the superheroes have to save the day. And this is like inside a quantum realm. So you need to have a bad guy, right? So the bad guy is Kang. So I would say the actor that plays Kang in this movie was actually not bad. It's actually not bad, but then he has no motivation. And again, it comes down to exposition, right? So he was telling us that he was abandoned from certain planet because he did some bad things, and I was like, wouldn't it be much cooler if we get to see what he did?
Is this Quantumania or Wasp?
So Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania, and Kang is a bad guy in this movie.
Oh, I thought that was later because Kang doesn't come in till later, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he was the bad guy. Well, supposed to be the bad guy.
Because wasn't it the Ghost? I remember the Ghost. Wasn't there the?
No, so that was the Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, okay.
And then Quantumania is where Kang is like the big bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Too many bloody.
No, I mean like the actor who played Kang was actually not bad. Like he had really strong moments. Like, and he did come across.
Well, he's
as
dropped
really,
now, isn't he?
Yeah. Apparently he's got some accusation as well.
Well, I think it went through. I think it's done that he assaulted his girlfriend.
That's it. Well, I mean, he is a villain, so...
Because I think they're trying to go into, like, Doctor Doom or something, like, try to, like, pivot off him, because he was meant to be, like, the next big villain for, like, the Marvel universe going forward.
Yeah. And then, that's a shame. It really hurts the publicity.
Because I do think he is, like, a good actor. Like, I've seen him in other things, but it's just, like...
Yeah.
Don't support bad people.
Nah, I agree. Yeah, so, if we talk about him as a villain, then we have to talk about the group of heroes as well, obviously.
Because they're all in it, right? It's like his mum, his dad.
Yes. Michael Douglas. Poor Michael Douglas.
Oh, he's still going.
Like, he was there.
They must have paid him so much money, right?
Oh my God, he looks so bored in this movie, and then he has no pivotal role as well. He was just there, and then he has a device on his ear, and then I was like, is that a hearing aid for Michael Douglas?
Maybe they're feeding him lines, doing the old. Who am I trying to remember? Oh, the old actor. I can't remember his name. The guy from Godfather, the old guy.
Robert De Niro.
No, not Robert De Niro. The father, the old guy. I can't remember his name. I can't remember the actor's name now.
Yeah.
But he used to not learn his lines, and they used to like show him his lines because he's like, that will be like as I would say it in the moment, which is a bit arrogant.
Yes,
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, maybe they're feeding him lines. But
yeah, perhaps, or maybe he was just old.
He's just an old man.
Yeah, he couldn't hear very well. But yeah, so he was just in this movie as I would say as a comedic relief, and all the main events are carried out by all the female characters. The mom, Casey, the teenage girl, and even for the resistance army, their leader is a female character as well.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember from clips if I've seen of this movie or not.
Like she looks like a barbarian in what?
Because who's the actress? Is she? Who plays the main villain?
The main villain.
Didn't you say the main villain's a woman as well, apart from Kang? Or is this another antagonist?
No. So there's only one big villain in this, and the other villain is Darren from the first movie.
He comes back. Yeah,
he comes back now.
Good on him.
He comes back as MODOK.
Oh,
yeah. The giant floating head.
I've seen the image of that.
The CGI is so bad.
Well, these poor CGI guys work them to death.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I mean, if you work in the CGI department, I didn't mean to give you like bad reviews, but I'm so sorry. Like this CGI was like. Do you remember Shark Boy and Lava Girl? One of the old movies. So one of the villains has like big floating head as well.
Because it was meant to be for the 3D effect. Because that was like the big thing back then.
Yeah, even that looks better than the floating head in this movie. But yeah, so it lacks the coherent perspective. It lacks the motivation for the hero. Like why do they even need to help these people? And there are a bunch of unnecessary events going on. Michael Douglas looked bored. Even Michelle Pfeiffer, like she was trying so hard to carry this movie, but she was just like
there's not much there.
There's not much there. And like, should we follow her or should we follow Ant-Man? Because they got separated, right?
So that's what I mean. You got like two plots,
three
plots.
If you count the Resistance fighting Kang as well.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So Quantum Mania is my number 2.
Number 2. Well, my number 2 was the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember watching the first Amazing Spider-Man. Thought it was fine. Like, I will always say that I do like the old Spider-Man stuff.
With Tobey Maguire.
I always enjoyed those because obviously I grew up on them. So when these come out kind of like high school, end of high school for me. And I was like, I remember watching the first one and being like, oh, this is fine. And then I remember watching this and being like, this is...
terrible.
This is absolutely terrible. Because I do think Garfield is a great actor as well. That's what I find funny. A lot of these bad movies have great actors and actresses, but they never utilize them. Like in this is Garfield, Emma Stone.
Yes.
Who was the guy? I had it. They've got Jamie Foxx as Electro, who's absolutely terrible in this. Dane DeHaan, I wrote his name down. He's been good. I think he's a good actor, and he's terrible in this as well. I don't even know where to start with this movie.
Yeah.
So, like we're talking about, like having too many things going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this movie. There's so many villains. I think there's like 3 or 4 villains through the whole thing. And it's just like, who are we meant to be following through this whole thing? And it's like Spider-Man's going through like 5 or 6 different things through this whole movie. So at the start, he's just like, dealing with the fact. So in the first one, Emma Stone's father dies, and he didn't want her to be with him because he's Spider-Man. It's going to be like dangerous. They shouldn't be together. Yeah. So he's got this whole thing. Peter Parker's like, oh, I can't be with you. He like talks to us like, oh, we can't be together because your father didn't want us to be together and he's dead and I'm having a great time hanging out with you and like we're in love and hanging out with your family. And I'm like, okay, okay, this is like weird, but like I understand the like, because she knows he's Spider-Man and he like, you get that like, oh, everyone's like, they've all had this, there's been this plot through a lot of movies now. It's like, oh, we can't be together because a villain finds out they're going to kidnap you and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't matter anyway because you still love them. They're going to capture them and do something bad to them anyway. But it's just like, okay. And then like he's like dealing with this a bit. He's like, oh, you know, I've broken up with my girlfriend. And then it's like, oh, here's another plot. His best friends come back that we never met in the first movie.
Oh,
Dave
right.
the Hun, who plays why have I forgotten his Osborn. Harry Osborn.
Yeah, Harry Osborn.
And they're like, he like shows up because his father dies of like a mysterious disease, and he tells Harry, he's like, you're gonna die the same way I'm gonna die. I'm like, damn, bro, you're a terrible father. And then he meets Peter and gets like, oh, we haven't seen each other for like 8 years. I'm like, okay. So we're getting this shoehorn into this movie as well. So it's like, oh, here's these best friends. They have like one conversation. It's like, oh, you're away like dating supermodels and stuff. And I'm like, okay.
I guess so.
They have like one moment together, and I'm like, so I guess they're friends now. Like that, like even in those in the old Spider-Man movies, like Harry, like he's in the third one, he's the villain.
Yes.
It's not great.
Yeah.
But there is that like, you know, friendship through those movies. It's like, oh, it's there at least. Where in this, it's like, number 2, in we go. Here's another thing we're going to shoehorn in. And I'm like, okay. And then so during the first scene, he's like doing a chase scene. We're introduced to 2 villains technically in this.
Oh
Rhino.
My God.
Rhino, who's played, did I write his name? Paul Giamatti's playing
Oh
Rhino.
Oh my God. They got him in that movie as well.
Yeah, exactly. Another good actor that's just wasted. And then he saves Jamie Foxx, who's, I think he's Max. His name's Max in this.
Yes.
He saves him and he's like, oh, you're my eyes and ears. And Max is like, he's a bit of a loner. This is like the style. He's a bit of a loner. He doesn't have many friends and stuff. And he gets obsessed with Spider-Man because he saves him. He's like, oh, we're like mates now.
Yeah.
So there's like another thing. It's like, okay, here's like another thing in this movie.
Ah, right.
This is like the first thing. Like if this is all it focuses on, fine. So anyway, all this stuff is happening. So there's like 6 different things revolving. And then there's also, at the start of the movie, it shows that like, what actually happened to Peter Parker's parents. Because in this story, they're just told that like, he's abandoned. But then he finds this like folder from his dad and he kind of like finds out the truth. And it's like, so here's another thing. Here's another thing. He's dealing with what actually is happening with his family. And it's like,
oh, it's exhausting. Like there are like seven story threads here. Yeah, like so. Oh my God!
They still have montages, but this is like, you know, that like they montage they have in a movie. They have like stupid music, and he's like doing something. He's like, dun, 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 dun. He's like, so they have a montage back to back in this movie. So he fights Electro for the first time. So Max falls into a vat of eels and gets electrified, turns into Electro. Okay, fine. Normal supervillain kind of stuff. And then he's fighting Max later, and Max is like, "You're my friend. You're meant to help me." He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna help you." And then the police officer like freaks out and shoots him. And then he's like, we're mad, we're fighting now. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then, so he's got to figure out how to deal with Electro. So he's like doing experiments with that. But before that, he's found out stuff about his father. So they've got a montage of him like putting things up on his wall, trying to figure out what happened to his dad. Yes. So they go from that montage into like the electric web montage. I'm like, what's happening? Why have we got montages with... It has terrible music as well.
Oh, right.
So it's like, dun, dun, dun. You know that song? It's got this montage in. I'm like, why is this here? What's happening? And I'm like, this is just like... I'm already like getting mad.
Yeah.
And I'm like... Oh.
Bad movies tend to do that to you. Like it makes you angry. Like when you watch it, it's like it's so unnecessary to see these things. Okay. Keep going. Tell me one more thing that you hate about this movie.
One more thing. So at the point, Emma Stone and I've already forgotten his name. Andrew Garfield were like dating in real life.
You're right.
So there is like real chemistry there, but the writing is terrible. There's a point later where they like meet up again. It's like, oh, there's no reason we can't be friends. Okay, fair enough. And then they're like, the first thing Garfield's like, oh, but you can't laugh because that's too cute and you can't do that in front of me. And she's like, what, this laugh? Ha ha ha. He's like, yeah, you can't do that. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he's like, he does something. She's like, oh, you can't do that either. And then she's like, she touches her nose. You can't touch your nose. That's too cute. You can't do that. And I'm like, what am I watching? It was this written by like a 12-year-old and like his girlfriend. They're like, oh, this is how we interact with each other. I'm like, they're meant to be like in their 20s. Like I get they can be a bit cutesy and stuff. Yeah. But it's just too much. Yeah. And then I'm just like, oh.
It feels like a Disney movie, like a Disney.
Well, like
interaction,
kind of that,
right?
like kind of cutesy. Yeah. But it's like they're meant to be adults, and I'm like, oh. Yes. Like, I get some people can be a bit cutesy and they can find that adorable. That's fine. This is, for me, this feels really terrible.
Cringy. It feels cringy, right?
Yes.
It feels cringy.
I feel like this whole movie is like a bit cringy.
Yeah.
But
this is why I didn't watch the Amazing Spider-Man because when I saw the trailers and I saw like
I wish.
Yeah.
Because I already didn't really like the first one that much. But my mate, I enjoy Spider-Man as well, but he was like, oh, let's go watch these. And I was like, the first one, I'm like, oh, it's fine. And then even the second one I came out, I'm like, that's one of the worst movies I've ever watched. And I'm like...
Oh, my God. Okay, yeah, I mean... I'm actually glad I didn't see those.
Because it's terrible, because it has, like... Gwen Stacy, who's Emma Stone's character, who's his love, she, like, dies at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Did you... Okay.
This is like not very pivotal because she's like, she's going away because they can't be together and it's awkward. And he's like, oh, I'm going to come with you. I'm going to come with you to England and we can live together. And I'm like, okay. Even when I remember watching, I'm like, okay, she's about to die. Because this is like the lead up. You're like, oh, she's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know if you watched the latest Spider-Man movie because he has his like redemption arc of like he saves.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
But in this movie, he doesn't save her and she like dies and it's, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I'm like, I thought this would be the end. But then they have like another arc at the end of the movie.
Oh, another one.
They're like, here we go. We're still going. Because it's like, even at this point, Sony was like obsessed with like, we're going to have this like universe.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the movie. So she's killed by bloody Harry Osborn because he turns into the Goblin.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm dying. He goes to Peter. He's like, I know you take photos of Spider-Man. Can you like get his blood? Because then he'll like save me. And he's like, I'm not going to do that, mate. You're already a little insane. This isn't going to help you. So anyway, he finds a way to get this blood without Peter, and he goes insane anyway. And then he like hunts Peter down because he's like, oh, you could have given me the blood. And he's like, well, look at you. This is why I didn't give you the blood. And then it's just like, oh, well, let's see how you deal with this. And then like throws Emma Stone 30 feet in the air and she dead.
Oh, God.
And then I'm like, oh, this would be like an ending point. But then it's like, oh, him, like it's fair. Like he goes away for like a couple of months because obviously, you know, someone dies and like, oh, I've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then there's like, Giamatti gets out because they set up as like, oh, he like a guy like a guy like walks down this alleyway because the Osborns have all this like gear. It's like got Dr. Ox gear. It's got like a Rhino gear. It's got like Vulture's gear, like setting up for all these other like villains that are going to come into it. And then he's like, oh, we've got a guy that will help us, and it's Paul Giamatti, and he's going to be Rhino. So at the end of the movie, he's Rhino running, and he's like wreaking havoc, and he's like. Early in the movie, he saves like a little kid and talks to a little kid, and he like dresses up as Spider-Man to like, I'll take over and save him. And then Garfield comes back, and he's like, oh, it's all right, good job, kid. I'll like save you now. And I'm like,
oh my God, it seems like you really, really hate this movie.
like, it's not even. It's just
bad. It's just bad. Yeah.
It's just like. Anyway, I think we should move on.
Yeah. So
that was number 2.
Yeah. Wow. I can't wait to see.
I don't think I'll ramble as much as 1, but.
Oh no, that's fine. I
didn't want to watch 1 again.
Oh yeah. For my number 1, I put the Marvels. 2020. The Marvels. The all-female led superhero movies. I mean, there has.
So I've learned one thing: Darren doesn't like women.
Oh, I just don't like bad movies, and it turns out most of these movies are led by female characters. I just don't like bad movies
and women.
I mean, nah. Where do I start with this movie?
I haven't watched this one.
Oh, yeah.
This came out
2023,
end of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I haven't. I think it's out on like Disney Plus or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I already didn't want to watch it.
So one of the first thing is this movie did terribly at the box office. Let me look up.
So at this point, Marvel was already kind of like not really hitting. This is kind of like a slope for Marvel.
Yeah.
Before this movie came out, and even before this came out, like people, there was Captain Marvel, which I thought was fine.
Yeah, I think it was fine.
But it had a lot of backlash because. I was joking to you before about like the women stuff, but like there are generally people that are just like, oh, a woman can't be like a lead role and be interesting. And then there was backlash of that because why have I forgotten the name? The lead actress that plays
Brie Larson.
She like came out and said like, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. And then they're all like, ugh, and it's just like a whole thing that didn't really matter, but everyone carries on about it, which is not like the main point of like why a movie is bad. Like I think it was fine, but there are like weak points in that movie.
Yeah.
But it's just like I feel like there's that narrative with some bad movies, just because they have maybe a focus on female characters, but maybe don't focus on it in the right way or do a justified job for these characters.
Yeah. I mean, like, to be fair, Captain Marvel did really well at the box office. It generated like $1.1 billion.
Did it? Oh my God, I didn't realize it did so well.
Yeah. It did really well, and that's why they wanted to make like another one. And, you know, like, to be fair...
Because is it her movie, or is it meant to be, like, is it focused on her? Because I haven't watched this.
So she's one of the main characters.
Because there's three, right?
There are three. There's Miss Marvel.
Yeah. So she hasn't got her own movie yet, but she's had her own TV series.
Ah, right. Oh, the Miss Marvel TV series. I saw some of the trailers as well. I think it's going to end badly as well. Yes. But I don't want to get into that. But let's get back to the Marvels. So one of the biggest issues with this movie is just the pacing.
Yeah.
For a blockbuster, for a high budget movie, it feels like a Disney TV show. Like, the pacing is really, really slow. And there are some moments where the characters were just standing around. Like, literally standing around.
So, like, they're wasting time, essentially.
Yeah, but like they're not doing anything.
Something.
Yeah, like, they didn't say anything. They didn't do anything. They were just, like, fluffing around. And I was like, okay, is this like a mistake from the editing room? Or is this, like, purposely put in to make the movie this bad? But then, like... this movie got released in the theater.
Yeah. It had, like, it wasn't just a streaming release.
Can you guess what the budget of this movie is?
I want to say like 250 to 300.
So that is very close. So the original budget for this movie is $275 million.
That sounds about right.
Without any marketing. So if we add on marketing, that would be around close to like 400.
Yeah, because I remember this only made like 400 or something, or did it even make less than that?
200.
Oh my God. So it didn't even make like its initial spend back.
Yeah, and this is box office worldwide, not just in America. So it lost so much money, right?
So this is the worst performing Disney Marvel movie.
Yeah, to date.
I didn't look up the numbers for Sony, some of the Sony stuff, but I'm sure they did just as bad.
I mean, Madam
Web, like, I'm sure they didn't make any money,
but yes, in terms of the box office, it didn't do well. But when I watched the movie, I could really understand why. Because again, you know, the pacing is horrible. Like, you watch the movie and you just want it to end, and that's not a good thing. Like, you want to follow the heroes. The other issue is with the villain. So it seems like in this movie they ran out of villains.
Well, I did remember someone saying that, like, the villain in this is very cookie cutter. It's just like, here's a villain.
Yes.
Like, it's not really, you know, very well written or very, it's just like, here's a bad guy for you guys to fight.
And this bad guy was generated from the Guardians of the Galaxy. You remember, like, the guy with the hammer, like, from the first Guardian of the Galaxy.
The first one.
Yes. So that guy got destroyed, but he dropped his hammer.
Oh, you can't do that.
And then this girl picked up the hammer, and then she became the villain.
Well, there you go.
That's it.
It's pretty cool. It's just like Thor. Pick up the hammer and you're on the next door, right?
But are you worthy, though? That's the thing. If anyone can pick up the hammer...
This is a bad hammer, so it's like different reasons, right? Will you be the next bad villain? Yes, I will.
Yes. And apparently she does have some motivation, but then it got through the exposition to us. Oh, I'm doing this because I want to do this. Oh, and I still... like, the first scene that we got introduced to the villain burned into my memory. Like, and I don't want that to happen. So she was looking for a pair of bracelets.
Okay, classic. Is it Shang-Chi that they have the
10 rings?
The 10 rings?
Yes. So this one is like a bracelet. Movie. This is like a full-on bracelet for your whole arm. Okay. And it comes in a pair. So apparently...
So like Wonder Woman?
Yes. Ooh. Yeah, well, I mean, but this one is even... this one is even more powerful. So if you put them together, you can open a portal to different dimension.
Hopefully one with a better movie.
I hope so. I really hope so. At this point, I really come back to, like, speaking of X-Men, like the X-Men animated series back then. Oh, those are so good. But the first thing that we got introduced to her, she was carrying the hammer. One of the bracelets was put inside a container, a giant container.
Only a hammer can break it?
I don't know. I don't know because nothing was explained to us. Like, okay, this thing can only be broken by the hammer. And the thing is, the first acting that she did was she put the hammer on and she literally did like, boop. Yeah. And then the container just broke.
Oh, there you go. That's like, good hammer. Does its job, I guess.
I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. And then she's like just surfing through the debris and said, okay, I found this bracelet. Where is the other one? They're supposed to come in pairs. Like, how do we even know that?
Well, now we know.
Now we know. Like, how do you know that? And
she's telling you.
Yeah. Oh God. And then Captain Marvel, Brie Larson in this movie is pretty much like she's just floating around. The three of them got entangled in some way, like their powers got switched. If they use their powers, they will get switched.
I vaguely heard about this, and it sounded like the actual concept of them, because they like switch places, don't they?
Yes, they do.
That sounds like an interesting thing.
It is, but it wasn't made. It wasn't done well.
I heard it wasn't done well.
It wasn't done well. I mean, again, it comes back to the issue of like they always downplay the moments. Like there are no real stakes for them to messing up their powers. You know, like all three of them are kicking ass, and when they switch places, they still kick ass. So you know, it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't have any weight to it.
Like a stake, yeah. There's no stake to it because it's just like, okay, they're just going to fight somewhere else and still do well.
Yeah, exactly. And then they also put poor Samuel L. Jackson in this.
Well, he's in all of these now, I feel.
Yeah, so he's a new Stan Lee apparently.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
I was talking to this one of my mates, and I'm like, he makes a lot of movies now.
Yes.
He's like in his 70s. He's just going insane.
Yes.
I thought he'd take a step back. He's in more stuff.
In this movie, I would say the best thing about this movie are the cats.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go.
The cats.
One enjoyable thing.
Yes, the cats. I was like, oh, cute cats. And it turns out they are aliens and they eat people.
Well, isn't that the... funny, isn't there one in the first one?
Yes,
where she like has a big mouth and like eats things.
Yes. So in this movie there are thousands of them.
Nice.
So that cat from the first movie, he laid eggs.
Oh, well there you go. As all cats do.
Yes. And then from the eggs, a bunch of kittens came out, and all the kittens ate people.
Nice. Good.
So
good.
yeah. So like, but the thing is, it was really clear the purpose of the character.
Okay.
And of course, Nick Fury was there. Oh, so this giant space station is going to explode for some reason, and okay, we need to evacuate all these people, but we don't have enough pods, which is another illogical thing. Like you would think that when you build this space station, you are going to put this many people on the space station. Yeah, maybe we should put enough escape pods. Nah.
Good luck.
No. So
learn to breathe in outer space.
But some of the staff members might be aliens,
okay.
So they might be able to breathe outer space, but who knows? Like they gave us no explanation whatsoever. But the cats came in and then they ate people and then they put the cats in the escape pods. And that's how they saved all the people. This is stupid, but it's actually very good. So the best part about this movie, it actually makes sense. Yeah, and then I completely forgot about the villain. Like, okay, so she's trying to find the other bracelet. To do what? Because she wants to open a portal. Why does she want to open a portal? Wow, it's not important. We don't need to know. Oh my God. I watched this movie. It's like, oh my God, I'm so mad. Like, just end the movie already. Just end the movie already. And the dialogues, oh my God, the dialogues is just horrible. Poor Samuel L. Jackson. I still remember this particular scene. One of the Marvels, she was trying to fly. And she flew after like 10 seconds of struggle. And she flew, and then because she was using her power, she got switch plays with Captain Marvel. And then Nick Fury was looking up at the sky, and then someone was falling down. Said, "Oh no, she's falling!" But his acting at that part was like, "Oh no, she's falling!" And then Captain Marvel fell on the ground, and he was like, "Oh, it's Carol, it's cool." I was like, "Is this acting? Like you got paid like millions of dollars just to do this line?"
Yeah, that's all right.
Oh, yeah, Tim. Yeah.
Like his classic lines, get these motherfucking snakes with this motherfucking plane.
But at least he did that with some conviction. This time, he did that line with no conviction whatsoever. I'm pretty sure this is literally how he would talk to people outside of the acting. Oh, it's Carol, it's cool. Like, oh my God.
Well, it is Carol.
Yes, that's my number one pick for the worst Marvel movie up until this point. I mean, I haven't seen Madam Web yet.
And A lot of these other Sony movies.
Yeah, apparently. A lot of these Sony movies. Well, I mean, to be fair, I did enjoy some of the X-Men movies.
I do as well. Yeah. I'm sure at some point we'll probably review some of them because I do enjoy those.
Yeah.
So anyway, my number one is Morbius, Mr. Morbin time.
Oh, it's Morbin time. Na, 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 na.
So this is one of the strangest, I think, movies in like all of history. So Jared Leto is like the main character in this.
Yeah.
And this is the second spin-off after Venom, I think, in like the kind of Sony Marvel universe. And then it's just like, so he like Morbius is meant to be like a vampire dude. Right. So the whole story with this is he's like, him and his mate have been sick their whole lives. He's like a smart dude. So he goes and he tries to figure out a way to save themselves from dying. And he ends up going to this cave to find these like bats. And then like the bats bite him and then turn him into a vampire. And I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever. And then he's like all good. Like he's on crutches. He can't walk properly. So his other mate, Matt Smith, who's in this, who I love because he's in Doctor Who. And I feel so bad that he was in this movie. I really wish he could have chose any other movie. Even saying that. So in Dark World, Christopher Eccleston's in it. He's also a doctor.
Ah, yes.
So there seems to be a thing about choosing a doctor and putting him in bad Marvel movies. Can they not leave him alone? But so he's like a similar disease, and he's like, oh, I found this cure, but obviously it turns him into like a vampire, and he's like, oh, I can't really give it to you because I don't want you to turn into a vampire.
Yes.
So obviously he gets it and turns into a vampire. So it's just like they're like, oh, here's two of the same dudes again. So obviously they have to fight. And they do. And it's just, oh, okay, here's Mr. Morbius fighting Mr. Morbius. And I'm just like we were saying before, they don't think of like a creative way to like do this. And they're just like, here's two dudes fighting. And this is anti-hero again, because he's meant to be a villain. He's not like a hero.
Right.
So he's not meant to be like clear-cut good, but it's just so stupid.
That's a nice way to put it.
It is. I didn't even like, because there's like the whole mood, like I said, the Morbin time was like a meme. Because the movie was so bad, people wouldn't watch it. And there was a meme where they'd put like a fake screenshot of, or not, it was a real screenshot of like someone watching Morbius, but they put like in like subtitles, it's Morbin time. And people would be like, oh, don't you love Morbius? My favorite scene, it's Morbin time. And it was just a bad joke because it's a bad movie and no one's seen it. So people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it's like, no, it's not in the movie. And then, so Jared Leto picked up on this. So he got like a script and he's like, oh, no, it's like Morbius 2. And it's like, it's Morbin time. And I'm like, oh my God. Somehow, because this picked up so much steam, this meme, it convinced, at this point, it's out of the theaters. Sony thought, oh, people love the meme. Let's put it out again. No, it did just as bad.
Wow. So they put out the movies twice.
It went out once, did terribly, and then it was the meme, and everyone's like, oh, bring it out. People are going to watch it. And they're like, okay. No one went to watch it because it's terrible.
Oh, my God.
So this struggles from what the other Sony movies did again. They're trying to make this whole universe and not really try to create good characters. They really, because I haven't watched Madam Web. I assume this is a similar thing where it's like, here's all these kind of cool characters, but it doesn't really do a good job developing them. And it's like, here they are. Because I think in this, there's like a police detective who's meant to be like another character. And the actor came out and said they've even like drawn back a lot of his stuff at the point. Because obviously, I don't know what they did in the editing, but they're just like, oh, it might have been too much. And I'm like, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I don't know if anything would have saved this movie.
Yeah.
But it's just so hard when it's just like, because I think there is like enjoyment in it, but not in a good way.
Right. So this is like the room of the modern time.
Like almost, but not like self-aware. It kind of comes with the meme. It comes like self-aware.
Yeah.
But that's even a meme's like out of the movie. So it's not like, oh, let's watch it for the meme. I was talking before with you about the Matt Smith dancing scene.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite bit in the whole movie because it's so stupid and weird. So at this point in the movie, he's like just gotten his powers and he's feeling good.
Yeah.
So he's like getting dressed up, getting ready to go out of town. So there's this stupid song on and it's saying it's sexy time. It's sexy time. And he's doing this like little like dance. And I'm like, it is great.
I really want to know the direction from the director for this scene. Hey, Matt Smith, I know that you're a Doctor Who, but can you put on some dance moves for us?
And they're great.
They're great.
I wish this was the whole movie. I probably would have got more enjoyment out of it.
Do you think that Matt Smith would have been much better Morbius, perhaps?
Probably not. If this was the script, because I'm not a fan of Jared Leto, but he is a good actor. And like, I don't think it was just bad writing and a bad script. Like, I don't think switching them around, like I probably would have rooted for it more because I like Matt Smith, but I think it would have still been a bad movie because the script is still just not good. It's just like, I'm glad I didn't watch it again because I don't want to really think about it as much.
Maybe just watch it again and just watch the dancing scene.
Well, that's what I mean. I'd rather just watch. I think I did watch that more than I watched the whole movie.
Okay, I think we have spent enough time to vent on these movies.
We've done enough.
Now I think that I feel exhausted. Really, like
I am.
I spent the weekend just to go through all these movies, and it's like I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And next episode, we're going to do the DC worst 5 movies. It's going to be a challenge, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
And this has been Movie Beings.